This is the Mental Metal Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Metal Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. Everyone knows the old joke about real estate. The three most important things of real estate are location, location, location. Well, this is the Mental Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and we are not talking about real estate today. We're talking about coaching, and we're talking about mentality as a coach and working with your players. So I'm going to ask the question a different way. What are the three most important things to develop in your culture as a coach in your program? And according to my guest today, the answer will be communication, communication, communication. My guest today is Russ Plummer, and he's got a lot of experience that leads me to believe I should listen to him on how important communication is. He went to Indiana University and started coaching there, where he didn't play. He wanted to coach, and he'll talk about that, how important. He says in this interview that he believes that coaching is the greatest profession ever. And that is not a joke. Like, he means that wholeheartedly. And so he started coaching when he was in college and then went straight into high school coaching soccer. At Indiana, he was on some teams that did really well when he was coaching, won a national championship. But he took what he learned from those programs and started coaching in high school, and he did that for 33 years. And in those 33 years, he did the boys and the girls and kind of combined the programs, as he'll talk about. But 870 career wins, 439 with the girls, 431 with the boys, 17 state appearances, 3 state championships, over 100 of his players went on to play college, and hundreds more influenced by him and his program. So, yeah. And now he works with TACA, which is a coaches organization in Tennessee. So when Russ Plummer is answering my questions about these things and what he believes are important, and he's talking about communication over and over and over again, it's worth listening to. So I'm going to get right into the interview. It's a good interview with a very experienced coach. So enjoy the interview with Russ Plummer. Learn about how important communication is in your program, and I'll catch you on the other side. Parents of athletes know that confidence and belief are fundamental for success. We want them to play without fear and without anxiety, but once those negative thoughts take over, it can derail years of work. Turning that anxiety into belief is similar to building strength and speed. It just takes intentional effort over time. Mental Metal Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete. So welcome back to the Mental Metal Podcast. I am here with my guest today, Russ Plummer. And Russ is a longtime coach. I guess you're not coaching anymore, Coach. You retired from that, but now you work for the, I see your shirt there, the Tennessee Athletic Coaches Association, which is probably good for them. You've got, looking at your bio, you've got a lot of experience in coaching. Run me through what you've coached, how long. Just give me your credentials here. How long you've been, start me at the beginning and just run me through all the coaching you've done.
Well, number one, thank you for having me on.
You bet.
I was always considered different. I'm left-handed. Um, I always kicked with my left foot. They made fun of me, so I switched to my right. So um, I knew from a young age I wanted to coach. I would go to games with my dad. We'd sit in the stands and we'd talk X's and O's, and that's just something that always fascinated me. Growing up, I would try to go to coaching clinics while I was still in high school and junior high, just to hear X's and
Really?
O's. Being from India.
That is unusual. Like at that age, everybody just wants to play,
Sure.
but to talk
Don't
to,
get
but
me
at that,
wrong. I love playing. I wanted to play too,
sure,
but the X's and O's just really got me. Being 5'8", there's not a whole lot of promise as far as being a basketball player. And again, being from Indiana, basketball is king. So I really wanted to coach basketball. I wrote letters to Coach Knight at Indiana University. I would be a basketball manager. My assistant high school basketball coach was a basketball manager for Furman. He helped me out. He made some phone calls. Went down to IU my freshman year, and I was one of 150 kids trying to be a basketball manager as a freshman. And of course, they already had upperclassmen managers. And if you did not have a tie with Coach Knight, you didn't make it. And I understood that. But at the same time, it was kind of disheartening. My soccer coach, because I played basketball, baseball, and soccer in high school, he said, "Look, you love soccer too. Talk to them." So I waited till semester break, and I talked to the soccer program, and it was just like it just opened up. It was just like it meant to be. And that was probably one of the best decisions I ever made, because I was great friends with the coaches, lived with the players, trained during practice. But again, I didn't play. Well, that was fine because I was getting the best of both worlds as far as what it was like to be a player. At the same time, all those different insights from the coaches. And to this day, I still talk to all those guys. And it was just a great experience. Coach Yeagley, what he did at Indiana and what he continues to do with his son being the head coach now, and Mike Freitag in between. I mean, it was just a great experience. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
I mean, that's just right from freshman. So you started coaching right away, just as and I mean, to know you wanted to do that and then go in and do it at the college level, helping at the Division I level, it has to be a great experience.
Well, and again, the soccer office at that time was in the bowl at the bottom of Assembly Hall. So, there was some interaction with basketball. Soccer was great at that time. We won our first national championship my freshman year, won again my sophomore year, and was beat in the finals. We've been the first team to win 3 in a row my junior year. Of course, basketball was very strong. 87 they won the national championship.
Yeah.
Swimming was strong at IU. Track and field was strong. So it's just a great time to be there on campus and see a lot of different things and be around a lot of different great people.
Yeah. Where'd you grow up in Indiana?
I grew up in Elkhart, which is about 20 minutes from Notre Dame.
Okay. Yeah. So you come from up there to go to IU. That's a lot of interstate rivalries in Indiana as far as college athletics go. Yeah.
Sure. Of course, you got Purdue, which is
sure.
in the middle of nowhere, in my opinion, but that's another story.
No. Yeah. So you came out of college and you just started coaching high school right away?
Well, again, I've always believed that things happen for a reason. So I'm at IU, and 2 different people notified the office about a job in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And I'll be quite honest, I did not know anything about Tennessee. I knew, the only thing I knew was Dolly Parton was from here. And in my opinion, the worst show of all time, Hee Haw, was made in Tennessee. My dad
come on. Come on, Coach. You gotta love some corny jokes and hee haw, man.
It was definitely a cruel and unusual punishment to have to watch that show. But anyhow, but I came down and interviewed, and things worked out. And again, our first, where the building at Harrisville High School was very unique. The basketball gym was a dome, and it was located right in the middle of the school, and that just blew me away. Being from Indiana, I just thought that was awesome. But I came down and interviewed. I was offered the job. Now I accepted the job. And my wife and I, we married a year later. She finished school. She's a physical therapist. She finished her PT school at WashU. And we moved down here, and we really thought maybe we'd be here 3 or 4 years. And just different things happen. And we're here, 37 years later, we're still here. So it's just a community.
How many years did you coach then?
I coached from 87 to 2020, 33 years. Coached girls soccer in the fall and boys soccer in the spring. During that time, I helped with basketball a couple different times. I worked with the kickers in football for about 30 years. So yeah, it was just a really good experience.
What what are some of the give me some of the highlights for that 33 years of coaching?
Highlights. To be honest, it's the relationships you make.
Mm-hmm.
I built relationships with people in the community. Obviously, build relationships with kids. To actually have some of your former players have kids now go through the program, that's pretty cool. The camaraderie with the different coaches. Our school, I don't say it was unique, but our school did a great job of supporting each other. Whether you coach football, basketball, baseball, football, all the coaches support each other. And I obviously have great friends with those coaches from different staffs. And again, Harrisville is just a very good um, family-based community.
Yeah. No, I mean I'm up here in White House now, and it's I enjoy the area. It's I can see why you show up and stay for 30 some years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice area. What so you coach for 33 years in the same spot, and what that tells me is, you know, the location stayed the same, the sport stayed the same, but the culture and the kids that came through changed, right? So what I think that makes a cool and interesting science experiment and the fact that we only changed one variable really. What do you really noticed, like between the beginning and the end? You had 33 years of experience in one spot in one area. What do you noticed, like what changed as far as athletics and kids and culture and all of those? What really stands out?
Well, the sport itself changed. I came in 87. 86 was the first year that the TWA sanctioned soccer. So I pretty much came in the beginning of soccer being a high school sanctioned
Hmm.
sport. Um, so obviously it has grown over the years, which is good. And during the growth, there's also growing pains, but it's good anytime a sport can grow because that builds more competition, that builds more interest in the game, better players, etc. Um, as far as at school, I was very fortunate because Hendersonville won the state as far as the high school club teams did in 83 and 86. And then we were fortunate enough to win again in 89, which was my second year. So there was success there already on the guys' side. The girls' side, we kind of had to build a little bit more from, I don't want to say ground zero, but we had to build more from the girls' side. And I really enjoyed because both the girls in the fall and the guys in the spring, both of them wanted to be competitive. Both of them wanted to be good. Both of them wanted to work and do what it took to be successful. And that was very enjoyable because we were able to build a program encompassing both the guys and the girls. The parents support each other. The parents would work the concessions, the tickets for the girls' games, so the girls' parents could watch, and then the girls would do that for the boys' games, so the boys' games could, boys' parents could watch, and that was really good to be able to build a program that was, even though you're two different sports, was all one program, and that was very very. I don't say unique because a lot of different people did, but I think they did it very very well. There was a booster club, a foundation already established before I came, and we were just able to build and grow and make that bigger and better than ever before. Is really cool because every time new parents would step up, they would take what we do and they would take it to the next level, which was really cool. I think anytime you have a program and you're successful, you have to have certain variables. You have to have support from administration. And I worked with four different principals, and they all supported soccer very, very strongly. You have to have support of the parents. And then again, your parents come and go, but over those years, as you establish yourself, they knew what they were getting into. They knew kind of how we did things, and they stepped up and tried to make things better. You have to have players. Um, Again, we had players that wanted to work. We had players that wanted to be successful. We had players that wanted to go on to the next level or wanted to do all they could to end their career in high school. And either way, it was still a good situation. And I think something that kind of gets overlooked is, I had a great family here at the house. I mean, the wife was very supportive. The wife knew she was marrying a coach. The wife knew, this was our lives, and she was part of that, and she embraced that, whatever. And my kids, I was fortunate. Both my son and my daughter played, and that was very much part of their lives. So again, I think a lot of times the family aspect kind of gets overlooked, but when you have that support from there as well, it makes everything work out so much better.
Well, what I'm picking up, like you've got, again, you've got the 30 some experience, you've done it, and you've got that hindsight that you're able to look back at it, and you're talking about building this program, and you mentioned, you had these players that wanted to work. You had these parents that knew what they were getting into and knew, understood what you were about. You had this supportive administration. You had family at home, and I think I mean, all those are fantastic when you have it, right? But my guess is at some point you had to start to develop that, right? Like it didn't just, I can't imagine that it just came in and people just gave you, oh, here's a great program. All the kids want to work. All the parents are involved and everybody's supportive, right? Like there had to be some buildup at some point early on, right?
Well, sure. I think one of the big keys as a coach or a leader of anything is you have to communicate. I think you communicate how you want things done. Um, you learn from the good, you learn from the bad, and you always try to make things better. Um, I think one of the things that I see a lot of times is when you make a mistake, you have to admit it. Hey, I messed up there. I shouldn't have done that, or whatever. And again, admit it and move on, and hopefully you don't make that same mistake again. So yeah, it wasn't like from day one that it was all there, but at the same time, the pieces were there in order to build it. So, but again, you have to communicate your vision. You have to communicate what you want. You have to communicate the direction you want to go. You have to
Yeah.
communicate what we're not going to be about. You have to communicate, that is not what the way we're going to do things. So again, communication, big piece of all that puzzle.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talking about coming from Indiana, and you mentioned like a coach like Bob Knight, who's a legendary, fantastic coach, but he's also on that one side of the spectrum as far as like literally the drill sergeant type, right? Versus the other, like where does like, and if you followed Coach Knight, my guess is that had to be somewhat in your like it was in your head a little bit, and that's kind of like what you're trying to be, but it had to change a little bit over 30 years because as we know, it's hard to coach like Coach Knight anymore, right?
Well, again, going back to being a coach, I think rule number one is you have to be yourself.
Mm.
There's only one Coach Knight. There's only one Coach Yeagley.
Yeah,
All the things he done in soccer. But I mean, at the same time, I think you have to take those different things you like from these different coaches and put that into your own persona. Um, I had to be myself. I took a lot of what Coach Yeagley did. I mean, Coach Yeagley was a great family guy. He built his program based on family. I think that was one thing that I was able to, a lot of things I was able to take. But again, we had a family here at Hendersonville. Um, Coach Knight, you say the drill sergeant, but again, how many of his players ever received a technical from, doing things they weren't supposed to do on the court? Very, very few. Very few of his players actually got in trouble off the court. Of course, there's always some, but again,
sure.
they knew most of them knew what they were getting into from the beginning. So again, if you look at how both of them do things, they're both super competitive.
Yeah.
When I was in Indiana, we had Coach Knight, we had Coach Yeagley, Coach Mallory, football coach, ultra competitive people. But at the same time, they knew how to get their message across to their players and their program. So yeah, you have to be yourself, definitely.
Yeah. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, or perhaps you've heard it or even said the other version. Regardless, good coaches should not blame a lack of success on the players they get to coach. It's a lame excuse, and I'm sorry if that ruffles your feathers. But it's your job as a coach to develop your players. If your athletes lack skill or mental toughness, it's your responsibility to develop it. But how do you make today's athlete tougher without risking breaking them? Well, Mental Metal Coaching now offers professional development for coaches explaining how to do just that. The program is called Ember to Inferno, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. It teaches real tools and tangible methods that are proven to increase the mental health and toughness of athletes. The program is available as an in-person seminar or as virtual small group coaching. Don't wish for mentally tough athletes. Build them. Contact Mental Metal Coaching today. The Mental Metal Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Quick Cut. Quick Cut is the new alternative to Huddle. It's no secret why Quick Cut is the fastest growing platform in the country. Their video analysis platform has everything you need. Plus, you'll get triple the storage at about half the price. And now get even more when you use the promo code 50hours for 50 hours of free video storage. Make the switch. You'll be glad you did. Visit quickcut.com today. So when you talk about the parents and the players knowing what they get into, what did parents know getting into in your program? Like,
yeah, I mean, I was the coach that, especially in that high school, I don't think you could always play the same way. We wanted to play with some of the same characteristics, but we didn't always play a 4-4-2. We didn't always play a 4-3-3 or a 4-5-1. We kind of built our formation based on what talent we had that year. But characteristic, we always want to be organized. We always want to be disciplined. We always want to be strong in restarts, offensively and defensively. We always want to be a team that played hard, regardless of what the score was, what the outcome was. We wanted to be a team that the team that played against us. Hopefully, we were the hardest team they played all year. Not necessarily the best, but the hardest playing team within the rules, of course. So there's certain things we want to do. I was a big believer in being organized. I was a big believer in being on time. If you're late, then obviously your time is more important than everybody else's time.
right.
Again, a lot of things, characteristic-wise, what we try to install was things are going to be lifelong lessons. You don't just learn X's and O's. If we just taught the X's and O's, we didn't do a very good job.
Right.
Hopefully things are going to help them down the road in their career and their family, etc. So there's a lot more of not just the game of soccer, but how can this help us in the game of life?
I think that's something that's overlooked sometimes with how good some good high school coaches are, and regardless of the sport, because we talk about these Division I coaches, and they're good. Don't get me wrong, but they're also really good at recruiting to get the sort of players they want to fit the system that they want to do almost every year, right?
Sure.
But at a high school level, it's not how, well, at some schools, right? Sure. But at most schools, your public schools, you aren't like, you get dealt a hand every year, and it's your job to figure out how to use that.
Sure.
And I think it's a skill that coaches need to have and understand at the high school level.
Right. But again, you have to do what's best for your personality. I know some coaches, they run the same formation, just that they're comfortable doing that's their deal, and that's great. I was just never that way. Again, we were going to play with certain characteristics, but how we played may adjust from year to year. Basically, yeah.
No, I was giving you kudos because I think that's a good way to be. But like you said, some guys or gals are like, I want to do this and make this. This is what we're about, and that's what we're doing. You're right. You corrected me there. That's the best thing about it, is be yourself and understand what you're about, and then that's what's important to you. So what have you noticed? We're talking about, and we talked about players a little bit, and I work with athletes talking about mental toughness and some of the mental health we see with players and stuff. What do you notice, or what did you notice the difference in athletes from when you started in 1987 up to 2020, right? That's 33 years of change. And I feel like it's a big change as far as like the athlete. Like, what did you notice with the athletes?
I'm one of those believers. I really don't think kids have changed over the years, but obviously society around them has definitely changed. Back in the day, you could say, "Hey, we're doing this because I said so," and now it's like, "Hey, we're doing this," and you explain more why you're doing this, you explain more how you're doing this, and you almost have to educate the athlete more about different things than back in the day. Is like, well, we're doing this, and that's just the way it is. So I think there's a little more education as far as what we're doing, how we're doing, that type of thing. I seriously still think the athlete still wants to be disciplined. And again, that variance of discipline can change a little bit over the years, but I still think they want some type of discipline. They want structure. They want people to guide them, lead them. You know, regardless of what they say, I really deep down, I really feel they want that. So I really don't think that's changed a whole lot. But again, there's so much more outside that, even 20 years ago, the athlete didn't have to deal with. But now there's a lot more outside noise.
I agree. And when you're talking about, oh, the kids haven't changed, and I agree. We don't like when we look at you get some seeds and you put them in some soil and the the plant comes up and it doesn't look well. You don't really blame the plant or the seed. You blame, the soil, the environment, right? And so whenever we talk about these, coaches talk about, well, kids these days, I'm like, well, where do you think they're like? They're a product of their environment, and you're gonna have to do something differently to make that plant grow, that kid grow. And I think that I'm hearing that a lot from the coaches that I talk to, that they really want to understand why. And they want to know why we're doing what we're doing and what the reason is. And I think that's a good thing, right? Like it can force the coach to question, why am I doing what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing?
Well, I think as a coach too, when you explain it more and show them more that it's wise, it helps you reflect, hey, is this really what we want to do? You know, as opposed to we're doing this, that's just the way it is. So I think there's pluses and minuses both ways, but at the same time, I think again it goes back to how you do things. The athletes need to ask in a certain way at a certain time, and they need to know how to communicate just as well as the coach needs to be able to communicate as well. And I do think with our society changing, the communication piece is not it's still vital, still important.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think if you're going to be successful, you still have to have it, but I think you have to teach communication more than ever. Um, like we was very fortunate. We had a great locker room, and we was able to bring people in the locker room. And one of the first things that I made sure is, okay, when somebody's speaking, everybody's going to look at them. Everybody, we want eye contact. And again, that's something a lot of people never thought of because they're looking down at their phone or looking whatever. I mean, when
Right.
we talked at halftime or after the game, there's a period where we're not untying our shoes, we're not taking off the shin guards, we're just listening and communicating both with body language and hearing, listening, which again is another important piece. But there's a way you go about it. But again, those just aren't soccer locker room things. Those are life skills that are going to help you down
Yeah.
the road.
Well, yeah, when you say listening, communicating goes both ways, right? Like you got to you got to be listening as much as you're talking. Um, so that's really good advice for working with kids, regardless of the age, the environment, whatever, is communicating and that's great advice. Talk to me a little bit about how the relationship with parents has changed and what advice do you have, for coaches as well, as far as the parents go.
It may sound like a broken record, but again, I think you have to communicate more than ever. And sometimes not even communicating through a text or whatever means of transfer or means of communication used. There's so many different ways that you can communicate over your phone now, but have more person-in-person meetings. Maybe one at the beginning of the year, maybe one with everybody, maybe one with just seniors, whatever. But I really think the more you can communicate, the better things are going to be. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends how you look at it, we had to have a couple of parent meetings during the season. And those usually weren't good meetings. Those were things that we need to do better at. And the parents kind of knew it. You'd see a lot of parents come in, with their head down, knew that, hey, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So again, but if you let those things slide, those will become part of your program. And those aren't necessarily things you want to become part of your program. So again, communication is a good thing. It can be, you can be delivering some bad news, but you still have to do it, because if you don't, it's just going to get worse. I really think communication is a huge piece that, as you said before, a lot of people just either don't want to do it, don't want to face it, or take the easy way out, and sometimes don't do it at all.
Well, it's a few moments of awkwardness and uncomfortableness is worth a whole lot in time. Uh, I love the way you phrase that. If we don't address it, we let it slide, it's going to become part of your program.
Well, and again, I think a lot of it's how you go about it. I came in at age 23, went to school for 5 years. Every parent I had was older than I was. So probably for, I would say almost in my entire career, every parent was a Mr. and Mrs. or Miss.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't call parents by the first name. Now, when I had players who now have sons or daughters playing for me, I didn't necessarily call them Mr. and Mrs. And that's when things started to change just a bit. But again, I think that early communication, I wasn't necessarily saying, "Hey, I respect you," which I did, of course, but I think calling them Mr. and Mrs. automatically took some of that awkwardness off of that. Hey, yes, he's younger than us. Yeah, yeah, he's just fresh out of college, but there's a respect factor there. And again, I think that's part of the communication.
I agree, and I'm finding, and I agree that having those personal skills and communication skills with your players, your parents, it's crucial for building a good program, because I think that coaches can sometimes get upset with their players, their parents, and want to just kind of we let that respect level dip, and it comes out. And if you're not being a good people person and connecting with them and communicating, it can make that relationship, yeah, tough. We'll
Sure,
put it that way.
sure.
No amount of athletic talent or physical ability can overcome a poor mindset. Anxiety, fear, and negativity will always diminish an athlete's abilities and limit their success. If you're not intentionally developing your child's mental toughness, then they are not reaching their full potential. Mental coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete. Confidence is knowing what you can do and then going out and doing it. But confidence is also knowing what you can't do. Well, I am confident that I can help your athlete if they're struggling with some mental aspects of their game. However, I'm also confident that I can't help them if you never schedule the first session. That's pretty simple. And I get it. You're busy. Your kid's hesitant. You aren't sure how coaching works. Well, let me fix some of that. If you click on the link provided, you'll be able to schedule a free 30-minute session with me. Your athlete will experience mental performance coaching, and you, as the parent, will get to ask some questions. There's no cost, there's no obligation. It's just an opportunity for you and your athlete to better understand the transformative power of mental performance coaching. I've helped dozens of athletes conquer anxiety, reach goals, and get over confidence issues. And I use proven methods and techniques. If your athlete has a goal, I'm confident I can help them get there. However, I can't schedule that first session for you. So click on the link to schedule that session. At Mental Coaching, booking the first session is up to you, but the transformation is up to us. I think a lot of parents and players, especially when they're younger and they're starting off, I think they get into the idea that more has to be better,
Sure.
right? Like if I'm on this club and playing this, and it doesn't matter. Like the kids will be fine. They're young, right? And the more games they play, the more they have to do, the better off they're going to be. And I don't know in fact, I know that's not true, right? There's a line where kids, and it goes to the idea where I said before that we don't let kids be kids.
Right. Well, like you have academies now that don't let their kids do anything high school. You even take them out of high school and have online learning. I mean, how is that kid developing those friendships, developing those good buddies, missing all the different activities outside of school, proms, dances, whatever. I mean, there's a totally different environment out there that wasn't out there in the past. High schools, junior highs, elementaries, that was the focal part of the community back in the day. Now it's it's just there.
Yeah, such an odd idea for a high school coach now to have to be like, you have a kid that in your area that plays a sport, and you almost have to like convince them that the way we do it, and that the high school way is useful enough for you to actually do it.
Sure, sure. I mean, if
And
in today's world, if the player is good, the people are going to know. You know. Um, Unfortunately, the statistics don't show if you play this all the way through, you're guaranteed this, this, and this. It's just not there.
No, I don't think it is at all. I think it gets think it gets sold that way sometimes, and that's part of the issue, right? As if you join, and again, I'm not knocking club or
Right.
AAU and stuff like this. I have kids that did it, and I get it, but it gets sold as, but some organizations get sold as this is what we, if you do this, we'll get this for you,
Right.
right? And I don't,
Right.
yeah, it's not, again, go straight back to the idea. Then you're not letting kids be kids. That puts so much pressure on them because there's high dollars involved. And honestly, if you're trying to get a scholarship, that's high dollars at the, the ROI on that. And it puts a lot of pressure on kids.
Well, and if you would concentrate more on the academics, there's so much more money out there academic wise than there is athletic wise, you know? So, I mean,
I don't think I don't think that kids understand that as well. A lot of times, I mean, even if you go a kid that's a good athlete, if they're Division I upper echelon, that's a different situation, but that's such a small percentage of kids, right?
sure.
But what they don't understand is even if you go to a school to play athletics, the first thing that coach there is going to do is, I want to check your grades, because if I can get you some academic money first, then I don't have to spend my athletic money.
Right.
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 I mean, that's the first thing they're going to do is figure out, they're going to look for a kid that can get them. So if I got kid A and kid B and they're basically the same, and kid A gets C's and kid B gets all A's and might get more money from the academics, they're going to be like, well, then I'm going to the kid that I don't have to spend as much for my recruiting budget. I'm going to get some academic money.
Sure.
And I don't think people understand that, or it doesn't get touted as much.
Right. Right. Again, it goes back to education process. One of the things that we wanted our kids to do, every kid needs to sit in the first, second, or third row, just because it's a proven fact. You sit closer, you learn more. So again, whether they had the seating chart or not, we asked everybody to sit in the first, second, or third row. Just try and soak up as much as we could.
Yeah. What other, I love that tip, right? That's a little thing that you wouldn't expect that as the soccer coach, you're asking your athletes to do. What are some other things that you're like, here's some things I really wanted my athletes to do?
Again, going back to the communication thing, in our locker room, that we wanted that to be their place. But at the same time, we didn't want phones, because you can be all together, but you can be totally different because everybody's on the phone. So once we went in the locker room, we didn't want them to be on their phones. We just said phones were not going to be in the locker room. Now, yes, they may be in the locker room, but they better not be on. And we had more than one occasion where we went back out to the field or into the gym and ran because some phone went off. So again, you're not saying you're forcing them to, but you want them to be more around each other, more communicating, more talking to each other, more just being part of each other's lives.
Yeah.
We would try and one of the best things that we did that just happened, we had the older players pick up the younger players for practice, especially early when with the girls we went through 2 days, and the guys if we practice before school or even take them home after school. So immediately there's some type of friendship there with an older player and a younger player. An older player who's been through it before can help those younger players with those rough spots. A younger player has somebody automatically to look up to. And a lot of times those became friends for a lifetime. And again, it costs no money. It's basically just communication with the parents. Here's what we're going to do. We did have a couple say, hey, I don't want my kids riding with anybody else. That was fine. That was their choice. And I was very open. If a kid shouldn't be driving, tell me. I won't give it to pick up. So, but again, immediately some bonding there that did absolutely cost absolutely nothing and was a 10-minute situation of setting it up. And that maybe
I think that most parents, after your kid does it for a while and you realize how many practices there are and how hard it is to get them there and back and all that a lot of them are like, oh, absolutely. Right. Yeah, it's a win-win in that situation. Wow, coach, this is good stuff. So
one other thing that I think, again,
yeah,
going back to communication, I think as a coach, you need to let the parents know when the right time to talk to you. For instance,
Mm.
um, I, I was very intense as a coach. My wife said I was superstitious. I don't think so, but I had a routine that I wanted to go through. Game day was not a day to talk to coach. And most people that were with me at school knew that wasn't a day to talk to me. I was very focused what's going on. I just wanted to be around the kids. If it was a home game, I'd make sure the field was ready to go, cutting the grass and line the field, etc. But game day was not a day to talk to coach. After the game, whether we win or lose, I may not be in the right frame of mind to have a conversation. So if a parent ever wanted to talk to coach about playing time, there's a procedure went through, and this helped immensely. The player talked to coach first, and I didn't buy that stuff that you're just too intimidating. Well, that player someday probably have to talk to the employer. That player's gonna have to talk to their boss. I'm not gonna bite the head off or anything. We need to talk. If the player and coach couldn't work it out, then we bring in the parents. But the player and coach got to talk first. And if the player and coach and parent never worked out, then we go to administration. I made sure that was communicated early, and that really helped a lot. And yes, there were times when I would just flat out say, look, we're going to have to agree to disagree. Prove me wrong that you should be playing. Prove me wrong on a daily basis that you should be playing over Johnny or Mary or Sally, whatever. And we left at that. I don't recall a situation at all where we had to go from player, coach, parent, player, coach, administration about playing time.
Yeah. Usually, I know that a lot of coaches work on that, and a lot of coaches work on that and have that in place. A lot of administration, it rarely goes that far. It rarely, because if you just start, I think one of my favorite lines was when the coach, I would always use this one when a parent would say, well, this coach plays favorites. And I would always say, absolutely, I play favorites. And I will tell you who my favorites are. And they're the ones that do this, do this, do this, do this, right? That's my favorites, right? I think when you're talking about going in and talking to a coach is intimidating. I understand that. I agree 100%, but it's what we were talking about before about, I think athletics is a fantastic precursor for life. And if you need to go have a tough conversation with a superior, and you have to do that at 16 years old or 17 years old, what a great practice for life, right? Because if you're able to do that and get through it, what you're going to realize that the kid's going to realize it's not as bad as you think, right? It's all built up in your head. You go in, you have that conversation. It's like, oh, you may not get what you want, but you're going to find out, oh, it's okay. We can go have a conversation. I think it's good for kids to do that.
Well, and if as a coach, if you made a mistake and you own up to it, which you should, that builds a great respect with the kid, and the player goes and tells his teammates, look, coach admitted he made a mistake. You automatically build credibility right there and validity with the team. So it's a two-way plus for both of you.
I've known some coaches who would tell players and parents that I don't talk about playing time, and I never understood that. I'm like, I want to be, I can defend my action. I can defend what I'm doing. I can,
Society, you have to, especially high school.
I think so.
You have to.
Yeah, I'll defend it. That's where the agree to disagree might come in, right? It might be like, I know that you think this, but I think others, but here's my rationale. And you may not like me any better after we have the conversation, but I'm going to defend what I do.
Well, and again, I think as long as you're open, I never had what a close practice, and part of it was because our practice field was pretty much downtown Hendersonville. Everybody to drive by and watch the practice, and some other opponents, we think some opponents did at times.
Absolutely.
But again, we have nothing to hide, So again, it's like we can talk, but let's just do it at the right time in the right manner, So
yeah. No, I think it's all good advice, Coach. So last question. What did I not ask you that I should have? What did we not talk about that I should have?
Wow, that's a tough one. I've heard so many.
It's one of my favorite questions. Yeah.
I think, and I try and tell coaches this all the time. If I could change one thing as a coach, I would enjoy it more. Um,
Hmm.
Again, going from the girls' season to girls' season would end hopefully right around this time every year. There would be times on the bus on the way home, I'd already be thinking about the guys. And the same with the guys. When the guys end, whether we're in state or whatever, I would immediately start thinking about the girls. Um, I remember the first vacation the wife and I went on when I wasn't coaching. About day 2 or day 3 of the vacation, it just all of a sudden hit me. This is the first vacation I've ever been on. I haven't been thinking X's and O's or about this part, that,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And it's kind of like, wow, I'm this old already, and it's the first time it happened. And it's not that it was a bad thing to be thinking about. At the same time, I don't think I enjoyed the good times enough. Um, and like any coach, I probably let the bad times affect me too much. So just enjoy it more. Life is too short not to enjoy what you do, and it's not going to be roses all the time. At the same time, you know, you're in the greatest profession there ever was. I couldn't think of anything better than to be a coach. Anything I can't think of a better name to have than coach. You know,
I agree.
and it's only going to last so long. It's not going to last forever, no matter who you are. It's not going to last forever. Just enjoy it. You know.
Yeah. And when you're talking about that, enjoy it, enjoy the moment type thing. I think that if a coach can learn to do that, I mean, now the buzzword on what that means, that's mindfulness, right? And if we can practice that mindfulness, it's a skill that we can pass on to our athletes that's really helpful for them, because most of your athletes that struggle with anxiety and some mental stuff, they're not living in the moment. They're thinking about the past mistake or what might happen, or the same sort of thing you're talking about with the coaches. Enjoy the moment, right?
Sure.
It's not all going to be roses, like you said, and there might be bad moments, but you can still enjoy bad moments. Hey, this is tough, and be okay with that.
Yeah, I'd rather have a bad moment as a coach dealing with whatever than a bad moment doing something that I didn't enjoy. Some other athlete
Yeah,
didn't enjoy. I mean, there's
right.
so
No, it's a good point, and I'm glad I asked that question, because that's a great point. I love that idea. Enjoy the moment. I know that it's hard to do because we get so competitive, but it's a goal.
oh, sure.
Yeah. Anything else, Coach?
You know, um, I think you did a good job hitting the high points, and I think this is something that we could talk about a long time. But
Yep.
I think it was good.
Good. Good deal, Coach. I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and good luck with TACA, everything else you're doing now. And if you ever need anything from me, I'm here, man.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
You bet. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, or perhaps you've heard it or even said the other version. Regardless, good coaches should not blame a lack of success on the players they get to coach. It's a lame excuse, and I'm sorry if that ruffles your feathers. But it's your job as a coach to develop your players. If your athletes lack skill or mental toughness, it's your responsibility to develop it. But how do you make today's athlete tougher without risking breaking them? Well, Mental Metal Coaching now offers professional development for coaches, explaining how to do just that. The program is called Ember to Inferno, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. It teaches real tools and tangible methods that are proven to increase the mental health and toughness of athletes. The program is available as an in-person seminar or as virtual small group coaching. Don't wish for mentally tough athletes. Build them. Contact Mental Metal Coaching today. I agree with almost everything Coach Plummer had to say in that interview. The only exception I take, the only issue I have, is his dislike of Hee Haw. Hee Haw was the best. Hee Haw was dad jokes before dad jokes were a thing, right? Man, I need to get on YouTube and watch some old reruns of Hee Haw and just reiterate to myself, it was the best. Like I could pick up more material. Man, it's everybody has a flaw. I'm sure Coach Plummer, I've only had that one conversation with him. I'm sure he has plenty of others, but uh, at least I know he's human now, that in fact that he has such a flaw as not liking hee haw. But I digress. I certainly agree with his thoughts about communication and how important it is with a program. I already knew that. And the way I feel about intentionality and being on purpose with stuff and communicating that, I know that already. But to hear it come from him, a guy who's done it for 33 years or coached for 33 years and now on to a program where he's trying to, or an organization where he's trying to help other coaches and disseminate information to them. Like, he understands how important communication is and how important it was for his success, which he had a lot of it. And so many of his answers came down to communication. I mean, I asked early on what's important for building a culture, and he said, you got to have the support of the admins, the parents, the players, your family at home. And yeah, I agree with that, no doubt. But coach, how do you do that? And he just went straight to communication. You know, you you know you have to communicate, because not everybody's going to be on your side. And if you're young at this game, at coaching and stuff like this, just newsflash, not everybody's going to agree with everything you do. Not everybody's going to be supportive of what you're trying to do. But he was able to bolster that support by communicating his vision, which the reason that is so important is, as say you're a head coach for a program, if if you see yourself as the captain of that ship, the leader of this ship, yeah, you are in charge of where it's going, but everybody else is on the boat too. And if it crashes, they want to know if it's crashing, they want to know where it's going, and they want to understand and be part of that vision. So when you are sharing that vision with all the stakeholders, all the people on your ship, you're more likely to have support, rather than they have no idea where we're going, what we're doing. Is that a storm up ahead? Like, are we going to be okay? So as a leader of the ship, I think that you need to communicate that vision. And he was clear about what his vision was and what he wants his team to be. He talked about being organized, talked about being disciplined, talking about making sure you're on time. And those are pretty easy non-negotiables. So, like, I'm starting to see so many really good coaches tell me that their rules are be on time, and we'll figure everything else after that. And that may seem simple, but communicating that idea and saying, hey, here's when practice is, and it is an expectation that you're here and here on time. That's a good start, right? That's important. And I know that seems easy, but it's little things like that matter. And then he talked about communicating what you are, what you want your program to be, but then also talking about making sure and communicating what you aren't. And I think that that's where communication probably comes in a little bit more. Like, it's easy to say, hey, we're going to be disciplined and we're going to be on time. Well, those are great goals, but not everybody's going to do that every time. So then your communication has to be about having meetings with players, with parents, with other stakeholders about, here's the situation, and making sure that they understand and communicating to them that this is important. This is why it's important. And a phrase he had in there that I kind of paraphrased, it was the idea of what you let slip in your program is what your program becomes. If you allow things to happen, you're communicating without communicating that that's okay. And you can communicate what you want, but then you also have to have just as much honest communication about what you aren't and what you're not, and what you're going to stand for and what you're not going to allow to have happen. And those are hard conversations, and conversations that, in the business world and, and then the coaching world, that are like, they're conversations that save you a lot of energy in the long run. It's easier at the time to not do it, but having those conversations, and he talked about having more one-on-one meetings, more team meetings, more parent meetings, things like that. Those aren't easy and sometimes they aren't fun, but it helps your success in the long run. Another form of communication he was talking about was the education, and having that, communicating that knowledge to players. And that's a new thing in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years or so. Like when I was growing up, you didn't get much of an education by a lot of coaches. It was an education, but it was a different kind of education. You didn't get the explanation. It was kind of do what you're told or else. And that doesn't fly anymore. And that's not just me. I hear that from coaches all the time, that today's athlete wants to be informed. Well, you inform them by communicating, you educating. And honestly, there's some real benefits to that. Having an informed athlete is a better athlete. Now, I think the problem with that is some coaches don't like to be questioned, and nobody likes to be questioned. Let's be honest. It's not just a coach's thing. We don't always like to be questioned. But I think that that's useful. I think that if you inform your athlete, inform your parents of what you're trying to do, and then if someone has a gall to, correct you or critique you, I think that it makes a coach be a little bit more tested, a little bit more sure of what they want to do. And that's a good thing. Once it makes you look into what you're doing and making sure you're doing it right, doing it the best way possible. Cause we talked about it in this interview as well. Communication isn't just you spouting knowledge. It's about you receiving information. And that's really important. And being able to admit the mistakes, possible mistakes, the issues, and, communicating both directions. You communicate your vision, you communicate that knowledge and what you're trying to do, and then be willing to listen to the feedback that you get from your stakeholders. Be confident enough in your plan to do those things, and it'll help your entire program. Everybody will understand the intentionality, they'll understand where you're going, and that helps everything, not just wins and success, but that helps the mentality behind everything. If everybody knows what they're doing and can see progress towards that, that's a beautiful thing, man. To know where you're going and see yourself progress in that direction, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. So Russ Plummer, all about that communication. And it's some good lessons here. Thanks again for listening to the Mental Health Podcast. I genuinely appreciate all the follows, all the likes, all the shares. Hit me up, send me a message, Coach Thomann at gmail.com. Check out the website, check out the Facebook page. I genuinely appreciate all the support I can take. All I can get. I can take, I don't know how much I can take. I'm not there yet. So I will take all that you want to give, all that support. So once again, this has been the Mental Podcast. I am your host, Coach Matt Thomann. Remember to believe. Thanks again for listening to the Mental Podcast, produced by Coraggio Media, sponsored by QuickCut, a video management platform for every level of play, and by Mental Coaching, helping athletes learn to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way. The Mental Podcast is created each week to help players develop more mental toughness, and that is something that will help all of us. So help me out and like and share the Mental Podcast with your friends. Until next time, keep forging your metal.